This week, I am going to take all of my jumbled thoughts around using the tiers of play and tell you how you could start implementing them into your campaigns. Welcome to We Speak Common. Hello and welcome to the D&D podcast for everyone, because here we speak common. This is the show brought to you in partnership with the Dice Dungeon and Describe, two wonderful partners who have been with us for a while now. I believe, well, it's June now, this episode coming out. I believe the Dice Dungeon and I have been working together for a year at this point, which is wonderful. Great guys. If you want to get yourself, sorry, I just had a mini stroke in that sentence. If you want to get yourself some premium D&D dice and other D&D paraphernalia, there's lots on offer at the Dice Dungeon. The stock is constantly growing. Then head over to their website. There's a link in the description below, and have a look through their goods and wares. At time of recording, they have a sale on. I don't know if that sale will still be going on when this episode releases, but hey, it's worth a look. It's worth checking it out because the discount code works in the sale as well. If you use the code We Speak Common and checkout, you get 10% off your entire order, and I will tell you about some things that I recently got from the Dice Dungeon a little bit later on during the episode. We're, of course, also brought to you by Describe, who are your one-stop shop for creative writing needs. If you're great at coming up with ideas for D&D games and for creating fun adventures, but you're not so good at the prose of D&D, the explanation, the scene setting, then Describe has you sorted. It's spelled DSCRYB.com. You can go and have a look at over 1,500 scenes growing every single day. And of course, if you want access to all of them, spells, locations, monsters, and more, then there is a subscription service. You can get 10% off that with the code COMMON at checkout, and it gives you money off every single month, not just your initial purchase. The show's also brought to you in partnership, not in partnership, well, I guess so, a little bit, but thanks to the patrons who support the show directly on Patreon. If you want to do that, there is a link in the description below. It gets you access to a private We Speak Common Discord server where we are chatting and talking about D&D news, about each other's games, encounters, about the episodes. We get a lot of topic suggestions on there too. If you want to get involved, you're more than welcome to join us. It's a great place to hang out. And we often, we have a little voice chat room where we can sit and chat and listen to music too. So it's a nice little chill zone, a little safe space to enjoy D&D related things. It is thanks to the patrons that, you know, I can keep doing this when things go a little bit awry, as they have in the last few weeks. Although, touch wood and whistle, all fixed now. But the other bonus you get as a patron, and as my thanks for the support, is extra goods to use in your D&D games. So currently, there are things like the Sorcerer class spell point variant that I made on there, TOA guide, which anyone can get, that's free, the DM Guild, oh my god, words this morning, the Dragon Heist DM document, the notes very similar to that for running Stradmus Dice Tonight, loads of stuff basically. My two favourites are Araman's Tome of Artifacts, which is a book full of items that you can use in your D&D games, and soon to be released, actually probably going to come out today, so go and check it out, is the Extended Poisoned Condition, which is a short document, a short proper book that I've put together, and by short I mean like a page and a half, maybe max, for a new condition that has been inspired by a topic that I talked about a couple of weeks back. I've taken my ramblings and made it into a proper condition that you can put into your D&D game tonight. If you're supporting the Patreon, you get all of that stuff, and of course I keep adding stuff and updating it. I'm working on, very, very early stages of creating a setting guide that I'd love to put out on there for people. I want to create a spell book because I've got loads of homebrew spells. To be honest, I want to make a little homebrew rule book of all the extra little rules and things that I've used and come up with over the years of playing. So stuff like that to come to Patreon too, for you to nab whenever you feel like it. With all that out of the way, the only other way to support is to just share the podcast, and it's very helpful. So if you do enjoy the show, please give us a tweet, push us out on Instagram, Facebook, wherever you chill out with your D&D friends. with that said, it is just myself today. Hello, I'm Ben Norris, if you didn't know. I have a nice warm cup of coffee and a copy of what has recently been my favourite D&D book, The Dungeon Master's Guide, on my lap. Because, hang on, let's do a coffee sip. Oh, if you haven't got a hot beverage right now, go get yourself one and join in with me. Because my good friend, who you will know if you've listened to past episodes, Sam, got thinking about the tiers of play in D&D and started talking to me about them. And I said to him yesterday, I think it was, I said, "Oh, what should I talk about, Sam? What should I get into on this week's episode?" I'm just gonna grab my phone so I can get his message up. And he suggested this, and actually, I think it's a really good thing to talk about. It's a really good topic. So thanks, Sam, for doing my job for me. He said something I've been really thinking about after he talked to me about Druid Groves is tiers of play. It's a really great part of the story where characters start becoming icons and gaining followers. Can we talk about the presence of characters in towns and cities, how the region as a whole reacts to them, the followers that some of them might gain, like a squire for a paladin, an apprentice for a wizard, how to allow the players to form their own guilds, start their own fortresses, etc. So it's kind of something I've talked about before briefly, most specifically when Joe and I dived into Matt Koval's Strongholds and Followers, which is a very clunky, chunky, meaty, mechanical way of doing fortresses and strongholds and people who populate them and follow your party. I think it's a good book. I think there's stuff in there that I will use and stuff in there I won't use, as with any book. Each DM takes bits that they want and bits that they don't want, that you could definitely go and read and have a look through. I do think, though, it is not for everyone. I think it's for people who are very mechanically minded, and it definitely feels like it only really fits in homebrew worlds. But I will say that that's out there and you should go check it out. That is the only book I've read that really delves into that kind of side of the topic. And we will talk about that part of tiers of play at some point because it is important. But first things first, I guess, let's break down what they are and how and why you should be using them. I want to say that I don't think these come into play much in published adventures. So I have found that when you're running, Dragon Heist or Tomb of Annihilation or Curse of Strahd, this stuff really doesn't appear because you're so focused on the storyline and the adventure. And by the, let's say, for example, Tomb of Annihilation runs from 1 to 13, right? And by the end of 13, you're Masters of the Realm, as the tiers call you. But all that equates to is saving the world, that's a big thing. But when we look at the tiers, we can use them in a much more robust way, especially in our homebrew games, whether that's in an established setting like Ravnica or Faerun or Greyhawk, or your own homebrew one like Esteroth or the World of Kar. So I don't think these come up much, or I don't see them in the way that I'm going to talk about them in pre-written adventures, but in your homebrew campaigns, in your own written stories, I think these are a fantastic tool to really start thinking about and start utilizing a bit more. I'm just going to flick to their page on the DMG, and as with any D&D book, they're hard to find. There they are. So we're looking at pages 36 and 37 of the Dungeon Master's Guide, and I promise eventually I will stop talking about this book. Eventually. I mean, it's unlikely, but it will have to happen eventually. The book will be fully read by me at some point. So, tiers of play. As characters grow in power, their ability to change the world around them grows with them. It helps to think ahead when creating your campaign to account for this change, as the characters make a greater impact on the world. They face greater danger, whether they want to or not. Powerful factions see them as a threat and plot against them, while friendly ones court their favour in hopes of striking a useful alliance. The tiers of play represent the ideal milestones for introducing new world-shaking events to the campaign. As the characters resolve one event, a new danger arrives, or the prior trouble transforms into a new threat in response to the character's actions. Events need to grow in magnitude and scope, blah, 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 blah. So the first tier is levels 1 to 4, local heroes. This is the characters learning the range of their features in their classes, defining themselves, learning how to deal with problems and learning who they are as people, and things like that. This is pretty simple. This is your town level problem that the characters have to solve. Even first level characters are heroes. They're more than just common people. We know that. But this is them, arriving to a town or a city for the first time, not really knowing who any important people are, important people not knowing who they are, starting to make waves in the pond and people beginning to notice who they are and what they're doing and things like that. It's the time where they can get away with some things. For example, they have no renown anywhere, whether you're using mechanic or not. And it's bad to use a word that means something within the game, but no one knows who they are. So if they break a rule, they might be able to just slyly pay off a judge and be okay. When they're famous, if they break a rule, that's going to change the way people see and view them. So this is their learning ground. This is where they can make mistakes. And I don't think we need to talk about this much because everyone knows how to run levels 1 to 4/1 to 5. It's pretty simple. You might do something notable by level 5, and that's when you start to get sent requests to help, and that's when you might have stopped a chimera worshipping cult of gnolls from ransacking and destroying the town of Nesselnook, and so that town regards you as heroes, and your folk heroes, your local heroes. It's that kind of stuff. Nothing out of the ordinary from low-level D&D. When you get to 5 to 10, they call this Heroes of the Realm. Now, this is... I'll read you a small section of the opening paragraph. By the time they reach this tier, adventurers have mastered the basics of their class features. Though they continue to improve throughout these levels, they have found their place in the world and begun to involve themselves in the dangers that surround them. So for me, this is... this is where I set Waterdeep when I did Dragon Heist. It was 5 to 8. So within the Heroes of the Realm. And this is when they started to get involved with groups. This is when they began to really be noticed, where, the Blackstaff was looking at the wizard in the party and thinking, they have potential, they could be someone, they could maybe join my school, which the character took and ran with and became their apprentice by the end of it. This is when the Harpers, if you're running in Faerun, the Blackstaffs, this is all about Waterdeep, but the Harpers and the Zentarum are starting to see these people and saying, these guys have done X, Y, Z. We know of what they've done because they've started to, make waves in the ocean. We are going to go and use them. So this is when the characters begin to make changes in the places around them, in the sense that they start to have more, they're more than just adventurers now. And I think that this gets forgotten quite a bit. I think that when you get to 5, you're like, oh yeah, we're actual adventurers. And that kind of stays around for 6 or 7. But once you get to 8, 9, 10, I feel like you can start utilizing their choices and their reactions to things and the way they're dealing with adventures to start to shape the story more. I always say we go into an adventure with a plot. We know that one bad guy's trying to do X, Y, Z, and the characters will have to stop him, and it will take them to roughly X level. But stuff progresses as the players play. That's what makes D&D good. And so we adapt to it and we change things. And this is where you can start to bring in reactions to their actions. The consequences is another good word for it, but they're not necessarily negative. So if the bounty hunter in the party picks up, this is actually something that happened in my Waterdeep campaign. The bounty hunter picks up a job to go and kill an orc chief who's taken over the small town of Rassalanta. So they go and they take the bounty because they want the money, right? They're not doing it because they want to be good people. They're doing it because they want the money to fund their bar. True story. They do the job, they come back, and the people of Rassalanta now know who they are. And someone in Rassalanta works for both the Harpers and the Zentarum. So both the Harpers and the Zentarum now know of these strong adventurers who came in and dealt with this problem, and they see them as they might not necessarily see them as good people, It's all relative from point of view. They might not necessarily see them as bad people, but they see them as strong, powerful people who could be great allies. So they start to then approach them and say, hey, do you want to be in charge of this? Do you want to help with this or whatever? And so you can start really bringing in factions properly at 5 to 10 and start to utilize them in bigger ways. I know that Waterdeep Dragon Heist has them as being brought in between levels 1 and 5, but I think they're put in very small ways. That's if you really want to start a campaign with characters involved in organizations and have them like at the bottom and build their way up. At this point, it's like, okay, we're going to bring you in on a big mission and we want your help. We want you to go and kill this guy. We want you to go and get this artifact. And doing that makes you, gain renown and grow. And doing those things, taking up those chances that the factions come in and offer them, is how they then get to the point where they start to have people idolizing them. It's also at the point where the villain starts to see the characters as a threat. Maybe not a complete one, but one where they're saying, okay, I'm going to keep an eye on this. And once they get to 10th level, they're like, okay, I'm going to start sending people at you rather than just reacting to you turning up in places. If you compare this to a written adventure, like Curse of Strahd, level 10 is where you're going to Castle Ravenloft and you're killing Strahd. So consider that when you're planning your campaign. Consider, okay, I want to run a campaign that goes all the way up to level 18. I want 10 to be the point where the villain goes, okay, this isn't cute anymore. You're actually pissing me off. I'm going to deal with you. It says in the book here, the fate of the region might depend on the adventurers and characters of 5th to 10th level to undertake. These adventurers venture into some fearsome wilds and ancient ruins where they confront savage giants, ferocious hydras, fearless golems, evil yonti, scheming devils, bloodthirsty demons, crafty mind flayers, and drow assassins. So this is, okay, you helped the town, now you need to help the Sword Coast. And I think as well, a big thing that always comes up is, but there's always someone stronger. Why aren't they dealing with it? And it's like, yes, the person who's stronger is dealing with bigger problems that the characters can't face yet. Think about Gandalf in Lord of the Rings when he takes on the Balrog, or when he disappears for a bit and comes back. He's like, in The Hobbit, he's like, I'm going to have to go and deal with something else while you deal with this thing that's too menial for me to deal with. Something bigger has come up that I need to go and do. So consider putting that across as well. The part that I really wanted to talk about, and this is the part that I think needs the most chatting because it doesn't come up so much in play, is the next two stages, next two tiers. So levels 11 to 16, Masters of the Realm. It says, by 11th level, characters are shining examples of courage and determination, true paragons in the world, as well, set well apart from the masses. At this tier, adventurers are far more versatile, bloody hell, I can't read today, than they were at lower levels, and they can usually find the right tool for a given challenge. Dedicated spellcasters gain access to 6th level spells, blah, 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 it starts talking about abilities. The fate of a nation or even the world depends on momentous quests that such characters undertake. Adventurers explore uncharted regions and delve into long-forgotten dungeons where they confront terrible masterminds of the lower planes, cunning rakshasas and beholders, and hungry purple worms. They might encounter and even defeat a powerful adult dragon that has established a lair and a significant presence in the world. At this tier, adventurers make their mark on the world in a variety of ways, from consequences of their adventures to the manner in which they spend their hard-won treasure and exploit their well-deserved reputations. Now, we all know that high-level adventurers and high-level adventures are not always commonplace. I mean, not in published adventures, and Homebrew, it takes a long time to get to this point unless you're paying like a sped-up milestone-style game. And this is why I want to talk about this part, and I think this is where things like followers and strongholds and things come into place. So, for example, let's look at Critical Role. It's about this level and into the next one when they start going into Aeor and dealing with that kind of stuff. If you're not following D&D, you're not following Critical Role, I don't know where I am today. My brain cannot put sentences together. I apologize. If you're not following Critical Role, it's at this point that they started delving into massive subterranean structures of fallen cities that not many people have gone into. And like, that's a whole region, a whole unexplored place with dangers that people don't know about. It's when in Faerun you begin to think about stopping the assault of the Red Wizards of Thay and ascending into the Doom Vault to destroy their phylacteries. It's when Okay, let me give you an example from a game I'm playing. I'm playing in Descent into Avernus, right? That campaign finishes at 13th level. And my character from Baldur's Gate, from a noble family, did a lot of work to become a duke. So when he returns, he's going to start doing dukely businesses. He's not going to go on another adventure. He's going to sit down and run some of his business for a bit and run his group known as the Knights of the Shield. So he starts having responsibility, and I want to make it clear that that's not me retiring my character. That is the start of his next stage of adventuring, and I think that we can really use this in games. Now, this is one of the things that you have to talk to your table about, make sure that they're comfortable with this kind of play, but here is what I would do, and here is what I hope James will do for me. I hope he's listening. If your characters have started to get to this level, they've done, massive things. They've killed an ancient or an adult dragon. They've slayed the mighty Beholder Crime Lord boss. They've, come back from the lands of Chult and put an end to the death curse. It's at this point that they gain the respect and the admiration, or at least the thanks, of big, powerful political people. You can give the players the chance to rest and not to stop the campaign. What I would do is say, let's take Chult as an example. And if any of my players are listening, this is not what I'm planning to do. This is just me talking through something that could happen. Got to keep the spoilers away from this place. You come back from the exotic land of Chult. You've traveled across the world. Maybe you teleport home. I don't know. Maybe you get a boat. It takes days to get back by boat. You are exhausted. You are worn down. You have seen death and hideous monsters. You've probably, you've probably lost a few friends from that death that you've witnessed. Maybe you died and came back to life right at the last moment. You've been through things that no one else has been through. You need a vacation, man. You need a break. You come back. The people who asked you to go off them, whether it's the Lords of Waterdeep, the Lords Alliance, I don't know, the Dukes of Baldur's Gate, whoever it was, assuming this is set in Faerun, if it's in your homebrew world, it's whoever's in charge. Of course, always adapt things. Adapt what I'm saying too. And they say, well done, thank you. Here is a manor with 15 acres of land on the Shamalanti Hills. Go and just have that. That's yours. You can have that place. We're going to make you lords of the land, and that is your place now. You deserve somewhere to go and rest and have a comfortable life. Thank you for your service. Off you go. I would do a session of going to that place, exploring it, finding out what it's like, seeing what it's like, making it their own, talking about what they want to do. And not necessarily like, okay, you want to put in a pool? How are you going to do that? Literally, okay, you want to have a pool? Fine, you can have a pool. You can find someone to, yeah, absolutely, you can have that done. You want to have a studio where you can, like a dojo where you can fight and train? Absolutely, that can happen. Talk about and come up with this fantasy place that they own and they love. And make it a base. And then next session, when you come back, have an extended period of time passing. Say to them, okay, in the game, 2 months has gone by of you resting and relaxing. In those 2 months, people have come to deliver you things. People have come to hear your story. Someone from the XY paper of whereverville has come to do an expose on you. all that kind of stuff. These are famous people. Maybe you can, if the players want something like fun to try and deal with, they've got fan clubs who have come and they need to get restraining orders, like just fun stuff like that, like real life shit kind of stuff. And ask them, what would you have done in those months? You'll have one player who says, my character just rests. Enjoys coffee, which I need to drink because it's going cold. Hang on. If you can hear me swallowing, I'm really sorry. My character rests and recuperates from their wounds and starts researching into regeneration magic so they can grow back their hand that they lost in that trap in the Tomb of Annihilation. Another character, the wizard, might say, okay, I'm literally just going to start studying. If I've got downtime to actually sit and read all these spell books that we found, that's what I'm going to do. And over those 2 months, I've learned all of these spells. The paladin might say, I'm going to build a temple and ask for people to come and pray here and make this a place for my god. Things like that. Things that actually affect the world. Because now that place exists. That place has people who want to go there to pray or to seek the wizard's advice on something. Maybe the druid says, I'm going to, I love the house and that, but I'm also going to go off into the forests nearby and create a grove and start looking after the wild land. And it's at this point that books like Strongholds and Followers can come in handy, and for me I use it as inspiration rather than take the rules directly because they don't fit my style of play very well. But you can do things like say, okay, well, if the druid's going to set up a grove, you've got a series of land, you make up a space that is considered your grove and their animals can talk to you. Or the paladin's got a temple. That temple is considered holy ground and it's hallowed as if by the hallowed spell. And there you can beseech your god for a spell, any spell up to what you can cast. And depending on the level, it's however many days. Like maybe if you want to ask for the resurrection spell, I don't know what level the resurrection spell is off the top of my head. I'm going to try and guess. I'm going to guess that Resurrection is a 7th level spell. Resurrection 5e. Here it is. It is a 7th level necromancy spell. Get in. I'm a god. Okay. So, you beseech your god for a resurrection spell because a local lady has brought her son in who's sick and has died of the flu or something. And the god gives you the diamond worth 1,000 gold pieces and the knowledge to cast the spell once, and then you can't ask for something like that again for a month. Start putting in these kind of loose rules that you can use to make their home feel special to them. And then start having people arrive. They've got a manor. Let's say it's like a lord's manor. What if someone starts putting up a town nearby? A town starts growing near them because people want to be near the famous adventurers, like live in the manor on the hill. Oh, they're mysterious. And you can start using that. Use that extended time instead of focusing on the day-to-day life of the local and heroes of the realm, the ones who are out doing the job. Start focusing on the extended stuff. Big stuff takes time, right? Rome wasn't built in a day. So start using that. Start every other session a month on. The recap becomes a month has passed since that young woman, that young merchant came to sell you goods, but his son had died and you resurrected him. He since went back to the city of wherever and brought more people with him and decided to set up shop here and live near you. And it's brought more trade and more people. And over the month, a small town has grown. 3 sessions later, they've got a town and, someone saying, people are coming to you saying, we want you to govern the town and you need to decide whether you want to govern it, players, or whether you want to hire a mayor and what you're going to call the town. Start doing stuff that gives them start giving them stuff where they have affected the world. And if you need adventure encounters in the middle of that, then you do it in ways like the druid starts opening a grove. Okay, well, the druid has found weird stuff growing in the dirt, worms, and disgusting parasitic-like creatures. Turns out that years ago an asteroid landed nearby and they're a star spawn. You got to go deal with them. That's a cool little one-session adventure you can do around all of the admin-y type stuff. The paladin, he opens his temple, but someone comes by to pray, and it turns out they're actually a cultist here to defile the temple, and you get attacked by cultists one session. Like these fun things, and you can use those sort of time recaps to build up to those. So in the recap, you can see, people have come and they've started praying, and people are here. And 2 weeks ago, 3 men in dark red robes came in and prayed. You thought they were a bit weird, and set up what's going to happen in that session in those recaps, in those what happened during the month while we were away, which in real time was only a week or 2 weeks, however long it takes between you playing. And it's then that you can bring in people who seek the character's help. So, if the wizard has a tower in the manor, an apprentice knocks on the door, a wannabe apprentice, and says, I want to learn from you. Well, it's going to come down to the player on how they, if they decide whether they want an apprentice or not. But if they say yes, great. Use the sidekick rules in Tasha's. You've got an apprentice. And that stuff just adds to the feeling of achievement from a player perspective. If I'm playing a wizard and someone comes to me and says, I want to be your apprentice, and then I get to have a little sidekick, I feel powerful. I feel recognized. And it's the same with a paladin. Now you can use the psychic rules, or you could use stat blocks. There are different ways of doing this. A paladin would have a squire, so maybe it's like the equivalent of the fighter sidekick. A druid would have someone who wants to learn the ways of nature, whether it's like a little druid or a little ranger sidekick. Or you can look at some of the third-party supplements like companions, I think they're called. I've seen them on Reddit. There's things all over the place. There's different ways of doing it. The easiest way, if you want to keep it in 5e rule stats, is sidekicks and having them level with the players. And if you want to play more adventure-y kind of local heroes and heroes of the realm kind of adventures while those games are happening, you can use those sidekicks, because the heroes can send their sidekicks off on quests that's not important enough for them to go and do, because they've now got to govern a town. Do that for 3 or 4 sessions, maybe, and then you get into the point where the World Council, the Lord's Alliance, says, hey, we've got a big problem and we need your help. We've thought about this long and hard, but we need your help specifically. You are the guys who can deal with this. And that's when you start getting into the Masters of the World, the next tier, the 17 to 20th level, the big stuff. So this is in the book, characters have super heroic, that's a word, super heroic capabilities, and their deeds and adventures are the stuff of legend. Ordinary people can hardly dream of such heights of power or such terrible changes. Adventures in these levels have far-reaching consequences, possibly determining the fate of millions in the material plane and even places beyond. This is when, a god arises and they've got to go and fight a god, or another plane attacks or something like that. There's a long explanation for this tier of play. Reaching this point doesn't necessarily dictate the end of the campaign. These powerful characters might be called on to undertake grand adventures on the cosmic side of things. So this is when something so big threatens everywhere and they get pulled in. I mean, we know this stuff. This is fighting Tiamat. This is destroying Halaster Blackcloak. This is the fight with Vecna in Critical Role. This is the stuff that only they can do in those adventures. And I don't know. I don't really want to talk about how you pull that off in a story, because that's pretty obvious. That's like fighting a Tarrasque, that's just typical storytelling. But how do you use that in your homebrew campaign? Well, first of all, you'll need some really nice dice to roll up some stats and things for monsters and stuff, and some sidekicks. The best place to get those is the Dice Dungeon. And actually, I recently got I can't reach it from where I'm at, but I recently got one of the Bags of Fate. If you haven't checked these out, they are really, really cool. I'm so hyped by these things. They're these cool silver bags You buy them for, I believe it's £15, with 10% off if you use the code WeSpeakCommon on checkout. And inside is a set of metal dice. This is the cheapest way to get yourself a premium set of metal dice, and it's from the Dice Dungeon. Use the link below. You don't know which set you're going to get. It's a bag of fates. Yeah, it's random. Now, you could get one of the amazing sets that are already listed on the store, like I did. I got the really beautiful bronze, clean bronze-looking set of metal dice. Really nice, hefty metal math rocks. Or you could get a unique set that isn't able to be purchased in any other way other than via the Bag of Fates, like Phoebe did. She got this really cool blue and gold scaled set. It looks like blue dragon scaled skin with gold accents. They're really nice. Go and have a look. Bag of Fates, £15. Cheapest way to get some real nice D&D dice. And if, like me, you get to the point where you sit and you think, oh, I've got so many dice. Like, I have so many sets now. Not just of Dice Dungeon, but like of just standard dice that you know, when I first started, I bought a set of like 15 sets of dice just to make sure I had loads of D10s and D6s and things, because I'm a DM. You know, if you've got so many dice and you think, oh, when you see a nice set like I did with the Plain Shard set and you go, wow, these are beautiful, I need them, that's fine. But if you're thinking, I haven't had dice in a while, but I don't know what set to buy because like I've got so many, like I don't want to buy one that's similar, or I don't want to buy one that's too different, I'm not sure what to get, grab a Bag of Fates and leave it up to fate. Go and have a look. Link in the description below. 10% off with the code WeSpeakCommon. And of course, if you are running your homebrew campaign and you are running within the tiers of play and you're thinking about the different levels, use creative writing to make things stand out. When the characters get their mana, you want it to be described in a way that really sits with them forever. So head over to describe, dscryb.com, and hit their location section and scroll through their descriptions, written by professional creative writers, so that you don't have to, you know, pull out your thesaurus and find really good words. That's the worst thing. I hate doing that. I really hate looking through thesauruses and dictionaries. If you want to go and have a look, there's loads of scenes that you can get for free. And if not, their extensive collection of over 1,500 scenes is available with a monthly subscription. There's different tiers. You can get 10% off with the code COMMON at checkout. And that gives you access to everything and gives you 10% off each month that you pay, not just, you know, the first time you pay. And of course, it supports the show, which is always great. The other way you can support the show is through Patreon. Again, links in the description for that. So, okay, let's talk about how you really use these in a mechanical way then. So, like I say, I don't think the first two tiers, specifically the first tier, the 1s to 4, yeah, I don't think we need to talk about that. Everyone knows what levels 1 to 4 is like. 5 to 10, I think my advice would be bring factions in, bring groups in full-fledged if you haven't already. If you've had them in a little bit, then fine. If you've really not started using them, ramp it up. Bring them in, do some quest lines specifically for the factions that the characters really enjoy. Let them gain renown over those levels to the point where by level 10, they hold a rank. At the end of Waterdeep, I had one character who was Master of Operations in the Zentarum. I had one who had killed the Xanathar with help of his friends and taken over his position and changed the Xanathar Guild into the Locksmiths. I had the Apprentice to the Blackstaff. Who else? We had a member of the Church of Lathander who was very quickly growing in the ranks and becoming well known, and was about to be when they do more, because we will go back to these characters, will be sent off on quests for the church. And for churches, just as a side note, I would allow clerics to become and paladins, to be honest, to their apex to be like saints is kind of the way you could get to at the top of that chain. So you start setting that kind of stuff up, start doing that, get to the point where they can earn titles which gives them benefits. Now, you can look at things like the group patron rules in Tasha's to look at the kind of benefits that can be given. You can use boons, such as in the Dungeon Master's Guide, that give the characters things that they can do that others can't. So, you know, maybe a character in a religious order gains a boon that they can cast a really powerful version of the heal spell once a day. and it's like a gift from the god or a gift from the church. Maybe someone who works for a group like the Zentarum or the Xanathars Guild, they get the ability to hire for free, 4 people, a squad of people who can come and help them on any adventure. They can just click their fingers and those people will come and help. Maybe they can have access to that organization's I was going to say treasure, but it's not treasure. Their hoard, so they can go and borrow powerful magic items from that organization. If you're the Blackstaff's apprentice, well, why have you not got Staff of Power? Sure, you've earned it. Here you go. I mean, that might unbalance things for you, but things like that. Think about that stuff. Bloody hell, the Blackstaff's apprentice could ask for any spell. And the Blackstaff would say, yeah, okay, here you go. You can learn this because you are able to cast this now. Here you go, I'll let you learn it for free. Things like that. They have resources now. They're not just adventurers. They are members of factions and they are known people. The other side, if you're not using factions, is to have them have renown in general in the world. So that when they go to Baldur's Gate for the first time, the men on the gate, they know who they are and they let them in. And when they let them in, they tell people in the city. So not before long, the characters are then hailed to the Duke's offices, and they are welcomed and they are given lunch and they are spoken to and treated with respect. If they're good people. If they're bad people, then maybe they're told to piss off and don't come to our town. We don't want you here. So start doing that. Make sure that the world has reactions to them. Once they've done that big thing that gets them to Masters of the Realm stage, then start giving them tangible things. Start giving them a place to live. This can be tricky. I've had adventurers where they don't move around. And I've had ones where they do. And the ones where they don't, then great. They have a place, they love it, they work on it, they improve it, they stay there all the time. Adventurers who travel the realm, it becomes difficult because there's a disconnect from that place. So I think at this point, you have to give that kind of change in pacing. You say, okay, you've just done a big thing, you now get a break. Here you go. Stay here for 4 or 5 sessions, and then we'll get back into the adventuring. Give them that change of pace to make them realize that what they've done wasn't just an adventure. To them, it might have been. They might have been like, oh, this is easy. We're going to go kill the Demi-Lich. Yeah. But to the world, this was heroic feats of justice for them. This was changing the outcome of the common people's lives. So let them have a place to rest. Let them receive gifts and payment from the lords and the nobles who care and are thankful, and let them receive death threats from the villain if they're still alive. If they've thwarted the cult of Orcus, maybe Orcus himself sends a mental message and threatens them from the abyss or whatever. Start doing that stuff. Make them realize that they aren't just adventurers now. They have done something so grand that people love and revere and hate them now. And that's when you can bring in people asking them to train them. You don't have to they don't have to say yes. They don't have to train the apprentice wizard. They don't have to take on the squire or the druid or the ranger or whatever. But if they do, then great. Sidekick rules. There's loads of third-party companion rules online, or even just a stat block. Just give them the apprentice wizard stat block and say, this is your apprentice. He follows you now. You play this character too. Or you play it as the DM. You run it for them if that's overwhelming for your players, if they're new players. And you can boost those, you can buff those, you can make them stronger. The apprentice wizard might one day become a mage, who might then become an evoker, who might then become a lich, who the characters then have to fight and kill because they've taken the wrong path and the teaching wizard wasn't very good at teaching. Oh my god, that would be awesome. Stuff like that. Maybe the squire starts as a thug or a knight or something, and then they become over a couple of levels, you then change the stat block to what would be the next one up? hard to think of one without looking through the book, another fighting's kind of a subclass, then they become a champion eventually, right? And then once they become a champion, you then edit the stat block to give them some kind of paladin-like features like smiting and stuff. And you have a session where the squire makes his oath in front of the paladin character, and at that point you've then got another paladin, and they can either leave and come back every now and then, or they can stay with the group, and the party grows and gets stronger. But what if the paladin squire, who is now a paladin themselves, breaks their oath and becomes an oathbreaker paladin? Like, what kind of relationship does that bring up between the characters? So that could be really cool. So if you're running them as DMs, you can do that kind of stuff. If the players are running them, you can either give them full control and say, this is your character as well now, or you can say, here's the stat block, here's the character sheet, as it were, for the sidekick. You run them mechanically, but I will run them as an NPC emotionally and roleplay wise, because it can be a bit awkward as a character if you stand there and talk to yourself for a bit. With the locations, I would give them regional effects, give them things like lair actions that they can use if they are within their realm. If they are in their manor, then give them lair actions that they can do on their turns on initiative count 20, like the creatures can. That could be quite cool. Give them the options. Say, okay, it's initiative count 20. Do you want to use one of your lair actions in your manor to activate the traps and, all these blades stuck on the walls, whatever they decide, let the players have freedom to customize their locations as much as they want. There might be a lair action where the wizard in his tower presses a sigil on the wall, and a wall of force comes up around his treasure hoard, or where his spellbook is. Stuff like that. Talk about it. This is a game of talking. Talk about what that would be. That's how I would handle that. And I think threaten that place and have them have to defend it, have them have to improve it and fix upon it and love it and enjoy it, and have people come. If you build it, they will come, as they say. And then once you've done a few sessions of that and you get into the final tier of play and the masters of the realm, where there's a big threat, I would maybe potentially, if you've got a bunch of sidekicks, have the adventurers decide to send them off somewhere. If the quest is to stop an ancient, okay, let's use Vecna as an example because it's so stereotypical and easy to do. Let's say Vecna's rising, okay, we need to stop him, but he's doing two things. He's doing one thing over in the west and one thing over in the east. And the thing over in the east is really, really bad, and it's killing people everywhere, every day. Okay. We as the adventurers are going to go there, but we need someone to go to the east and deal with that problem too, because that's going to help us weaken him and fight him, whatever it is. I don't know. Maybe he's got like some sort of, maybe that's where his phylactery is, if he's a lich at this point. So they send their sidekicks off to the east, and then you play that out for a couple of sessions, and then you play out the big fight at the other end with the adventurers for a few sessions, because one affects the other. If the sidekicks all die, I mean, it's going to be sad, it's going to be tragic, and it's going to be heart-wrenching, but they fail. And the actual adventurers don't know that when you swap over, but the characters do, and they know that their job's going to be harder. Whereas if they succeed, they swap over to the adventurers, they then know their job's going to be easier, and they're feeling good, and they're like, yeah, we can do this. The players are, and the characters, that gives more fun to role-playing. I think dramatic irony is what you call it in literature and TV and stuff. That's what that is. It's not meta, it's dramatic irony. Because they know their job's going to be easier or harder, but they have to roleplay not knowing that. And you as the DM can have that deus machina bit where the sidekicks come in at the last minute and help with the fight at the end, and everyone's running 2 stat blocks for a big level 20 fight. How cool would that be? So start utilizing the fact that there's these big threats to build up in that third tier and then put it to good use. I feel like I've rambled a bit and it's not been very clear, but I hope you can kind of see and imagine in your mind what I'm trying to put across. And I think the takeaway is that third tier of play, that 11 to 16, Masters of the Realm, I think that's the key part that you really need to start using more. And you really could start. We all could, even me. I'm starting to think now, going through Descent as a character, I'm starting to think about what my player would do. My character would do, not my player, sorry. What my character would do compared to what I would do as a player. Because as a player, I'm like, oh yeah, I want him to go on another adventure. But I'm like, no, hang on. He's been in hell. He's coming back to Baldur's Gate. He's now a duke. He's not been running his organization. He's been having someone else do it for him. So he needs to show his face. So for a few months, he's going to do that stuff. So I'm saying to James, look, if I survive, let's have a session where we sit down and we talk about what he does rather than playing it out. Let's talk about what happens rather than play what happens, because he's going to do this stuff for a few months. And what does that look like? And when we've had that discussion, we can get to the point at the end of the month where we're like, okay, he's decided to send 3 groups of his factions off to these locations to grow their renown there. He's done this, this, and this as a duke, which means the city reacts to him this, and this way. And James can say, and these are the plot hooks that you've been hearing about during your dukely meetings and things. Which ones do you want to go investigate? And so that gives my character a much more real, invested, and rooted kind of relationship to the world that he's in. And I think that we can do that. I think everyone can do that in all of their games. When you get to that high level, that 11th level, start to implement that stuff. If you've got traveling adventurers, then make sure that they are walking into new places or going back to places that they've been to before, and they're being recognized and they're being met with a suitable reaction, whether good or bad, you know? Make sure they are feeling like they are in that tier of play. And there is always a way to have someone approach a character and say, please, can I join you? Can you teach me? And see what they do. But the groundwork building up to that happens in the 1 to 10 range. Having the players do things and interact with people and start making a name for themselves. And that's a bit on both sides. That's a bit from the DM setting up and using, important NPCs, and having the players on their side, it's them actually interacting and talking to them. And then once you've got into that 3rd tier, it's then on you as the DM to take everything they've done and take those consequences you've thought about and put them into action and set up their connection to the world. And then once you get into tier 4, that's when you use all of that setup and you pay it off. So if they've got apprentices, use them. If they've got a homestead, use it. If they've traveled around the world and they've met all of the different members of the Lord's Alliance, bring the Lord Alliance together and tell them that there's a big mission they've got to go on. And those interwoven threads, those connections, those NPCs, whether they're important people in the game from level 1 all the way up to now, or whether they're new apprentices that have joined and now they're going to go off on their first quest alone, that stuff, making sure you pay it off and the apprentice just doesn't go away and gets forgotten about and comes back later and tells you how the quest went and is a changed person, that stuff is the stuff that will make the players' characters memorable forever. I am never going to forget my Hexblade Paladin who traveled to hell and diplomatically became a duke while also putting his patron and demigod in power of Avernus. I'm never going to forget that adventure, and I cannot wait to see what the reaction to him returning to Baldur's Gate will be, because he's not just an adventurer now. His work has paid off. He's a duke. He's in charge of the city with others. So what does that look like? What does that mean? And I'm excited for that as much as I would be excited for him to return and be like, okay, I'm going to go fight a dragon now, because that's cool too. Ultimately, it comes down to talking to your players. But hey, I hope that's given you some ideas, and I hope that's made you think about the tiers of play more. I think my goal for this episode wasn't to say, hey, here's how you do it. It's, hey, here's how you can do it, and think about it more. Because I got to admit, even I wasn't thinking about it until recently, and it's all because Sam asked me to run him a one-on-one campaign, and he's level 3 at the moment, and he's a druid, and I was like, okay, I want to utilize druid groves, and I want to utilize the druidic order. So I fleshed all that out, and I realized, hey, this fits the tiers of play stuff. And Sam realized it and said, this is really cool. I started thinking about it. Can we talk about it? And so here I am talking about it to you. Think about it more in your prep, I think, is my advice. Especially if you're running Sandbox, because it will definitely help there. Okay, I'm going to go and have some lunch because I'm very, very hungry. I hope you're having a great day, and head over to the We Speak Common Patreon to check out the Extended Poisoned Condition. It is available there to anyone supporting. And I just want to add as well, the reason I put stuff on Patreon is because I want to give something and give like a little reward bonus to those who do support the podcast, but also because a lot of the stuff that I work on and a lot of the stuff that I create isn't setting specific. It can be used anywhere, and that doesn't fit the DM Guild model. So I can't put it on there. But if you go to my Patreon and you think, oh, there's some really cool stuff on here, but I don't want to support the show. It's fine. Not everybody wants to. I totally get it. I don't always want to support shows that I listen to financially. I want to support them in different ways. Then you can use the Patreon as a way to get those books and then like not support the show. You actually do get better value for your money if you do it that way. Not that I said that. I didn't say that. I shouldn't encourage you to do that. But if you pay for a month, you get access to everything immediately, and then you can just stop paying. So if you did ever want anything like that, you don't feel like you have to support the show for a long time. Although it would mean a lot to me if you did, because you get access to the server too, which is a really cool place to hang out. So if you want to check that stuff out, there's Patreon in the link below. As ever, if you go to WeSpeakCommon.com, it will bounce you to a Linktree page that has all of our links on, including those 10% offs for the partners. And if it says that it's not safe, just click advanced and then click proceed, because having a security certificate costs a lot of money. So Linktree doesn't do that for you, and neither does GoDaddy for domains. So just head to WeSpeakCommon.com for the Linktree, or just click on our Twitter at WeSpeakCommon, on Instagram too as Twitter, and WeSpeakCommon@hotmail.com to email us. As ever, that was convoluted and jumbled about, but hey, that's D&D and my brain, so I hope it all works. As ever, links in the description below. I've said it about 5 times. Have a great day. Enjoy D&D. Give your players an apprentice. Love you lots. See you later.
Thanks for listening today. If you like the show, do us a favour, leave us a like and review on your platform of choice, and share us with your friends. Send us to your fellow DMs and players so that we can build our community even more. It really helps to get us out in front of more eyes. If you want to support the show, you can by joining our Patreon. Links can be found in the show description and the episode descriptions on all platforms. The music in the podcast is Street Dancing by Timecrawler82. It's licensed under a Creative Commons license by NC. You can find it on the Free Music Archive.